our buddy Warren Buffett always talked about the market as Mr. Market. It's like an organism. It's a human being. It's moody. It's emotional, right? And so I think that the rates have become...
It's time to cut through the noise and deliver hard-hitting, honest insights into the real estate market. Myself and a special guest, a prominent real estate broker from San Diego, California, will do a deep dive into the crystal ball to uncover the predictions for 2025 and how they stack up against the reality of the next 6 months of 2024. Now, are interest rates set to skyrocket, or will they finally plateau? Will the inventory crunch ease up, or are we heading into an even more scarcity? So get ready to raise the stakes as we navigate the twists and turns of the current real estate market and empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions in an unpredictable landscape. Let's get started. And don't forget, if you learned something here, please subscribe to the channel. We're looking for 600 subscribers within the next 4 weeks. Please help us out. So to unravel this craziness in this real estate market, I have my very dear friend here, Jesse Ibanez from the Greenhouse Group.
Nailed it.
In San Diego. And so Jesse is a longtime friend, 20, 30 years, I don't know how many years it's been, a long time. And we're together in a mastermind group with our coach, Joe Stump. And Jesse, what is going on in California, the real estate market?
Yeah, and I wanted to actually throw a question back over your way. So it's, I've been living under a rock. It's been pretty well documented that there's been a pretty mass exodus leaving my great state over the last couple of years, definitely post-COVID. And the sense is that, maybe as a juxtaposition from some of the flyover states or whatever, like I got some friends that invest in like Ohio, no offense, Ohioans out there, if that's even how you say it, Ohioan, I think it's made that up. But like he'll buy a property, for like 120 grand, and like 10 years later it's worth like 130 grand, right? Like San Diego, some people made more money in their homes over the last couple of years than they did at their jobs, right? So the opportunity to harvest that, right, and be like, damn, dude, it's tough to live in San Diego. Like there was a news thing that floated around just recently. It's like it was rated #1, the most the most expensive, the most inaffordable place to live in the country. And it's like, wow, how did that happen, right? Like, we're next to San Francisco, we're next to LA, we're next to and like San Diego somehow got the top bill, right? So it's tough, right? And it just costs more to live here, just to buy the groceries and to take the kids around town and to do the activities and to eat restaurants, and housing definitely atop the list. So I think for a lot of folks, they were like, screw this, dude, right? They did the double Johnny Cashes, right? And they said, made a bunch of money, let's cash out, let's move out. And so my question to you is, I talked to a couple other folks who are in our shared mastermind from around the country, and they say, yeah, man, thank you, right? Because all the calls I'm getting for buyers are from you, right? Is that true also in your neck of the woods? Like, are you seeing a lot of Californians or New Yorkians or whatever? Are they coming your way?
Well, I just did a video about 6 months ago about New Yorkers definitely moving to Philadelphia because the cost of living is way cheaper and it's only an hour away.
Right.
But I'm not really getting California people at all. Not at all. Not coming in. But some of my friends are getting more into Philadelphia, like in the city. I'm right outside the city. But New York, every time I put a house on the market in a certain part of the city, New York. And cash. That's it.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's regional, right? So the U-Haul stats that they print out every year are saying that most of the folks leaving my town are going to like Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, Montana, right? Texas, even upstate, Washington, Oregon. They do a little that you can pull off the tax advantage, right? Because some places don't have property taxes, or some places don't have sales tax or whatever. You start getting into that boomer, I'm at the end of my downsize real estate life cycle conversation. And sometimes that's like a game that you want to gamify. And I totally get it, right? So, it's interesting is to answer your question pointedly, what's going on here locally. We still have massive demand, and I make the joke oftentimes when this comes up. California is gonna be just fine. What's the old adage? The state of affairs of my demise have been drastically over. Whatever that old quote is, I can't even do it justice.
No, I know
right?
what you're talking about. Yeah.
I remember that's like a president or something like that. Anyway, like California's been through this, okay, it's been through this several times. Okay, it's gonna do just fine. It goes in ebbs and it goes in flows, but the demand never wanes past the supply, right? So that's the state of affairs. To answer your question, Diane, is that here, even though everything is down a tier, right? So if you look at it like a body of water, right? Like maybe like post-COVID, it was like, right? The demand and the supply and the demand. And so what happened is the demand and the supply have both absolutely dropped significantly. I think there was like 50% of normal deal flow last year in 2023. That's massive. But the demand is still higher than the supply. So we're still having price increases. Like we just did a market update video last month and we made 8% last month.
Wow, that's great. Well, I noticed in some video I watched that the median price there is like 908,000, where my area is like 450,000. So it's a big wide range between our two communities. But same thing is happening in the lower range. That's probably what? What's your low range? For us, it's like 300. You're like what? Under 600? If something came on the market for 600, would it be a fixer, like a serious fixer-upper?
Diane, you're cracking me up. I just did a video on this. I'm not even kidding. It was like last week because we were getting a lot of inquiries on our sites, and my marketing guy, who you know well, was like, hey, can you do a video on what's available, sub 500? And so, if you go out, like the county's big, right? You go out into the rural areas, you can find whatever you need to find or whatever. But I drew a circle around the heart of San Diego, right? It's like the epicenter of where everybody wants to be, who wants to be. And I found 2 houses for sale under 500. And if you could see the photos of these 2 houses, they don't even look like houses, dude. They look like somebody who played a joke on the MLS, and it was like some shanty with a lean-to, type of deal, right? And that's insane compared to like when we first got into this business, Diane, right? Like, I know we're all dinosaurs now, but like, dude, if you came in, sat down, you're like, I got 500, you're like, dude, cool, we're gonna go do some damage out there. Not the case anymore.
Not the case. So yours is like 500. So I was just asked to put an investor property. He bought it. It was all messed up. He fixed it all up. It's a twin. And the last twin sold for $315, 3-bedroom, 1-bath. Now just 5 months later, I'm telling him $340. So for us, that lower end market is doubling, where the high end for us is maybe $1.5 million. Is like, or 2. If you're over 2, you're not like, okay, house of 2.2, 2020 is not now $3.5 million. The high end didn't go high. The low end just seriously zooming up exponentially. You seeing that as well?
Well, and it makes sense, right? And I may be jumping ahead a little bit from where you want to go with this, but the way I think about it is the buyers need a win, right? So let's just oversimplify this, and let's say there's three scoring models in this game we're playing, right? There's the price, there's the payment, and then there's like the condition. Like, what are you getting, right? Like, what am I actually buying for this thing, right? So let's quickly demolish the top one. There's no win in the prices, okay? Everybody thought the prices were going to plummet when the rates went up. Okay, well, newsflash, right? We're all now on the other side of history. That didn't happen. Didn't happen. Prices have continued to go up, right? Like I mentioned last month, it was 8%. Last year, they did a cumulative annualized, and San Diego is the second highest appreciation major metro in the entire country. And then we were second behind like Minneapolis or some obscure whatever. No offense, Minneapolis.
I saw that.
Okay,
right. I did see that.
I'm gonna get no friends on this, bashing the Ohioans and the Minneapolis. But the point is like the prices are going up like crazy. Like they're not going down. Okay, so there's no win on price.
No win.
There's no win on payment because like the days of the 3 are gone for good. And now it's like you're stoked if you see something in the high 6s, but we're kind of normalizing in the 7s, right? And then on a bad news cycle, it pops up to 8 or flirts with the 8, right? So like you're not winning on payment. So the price and the payment are away. So what we're seeing is that what you got to have right now is you got to have like, I don't want to buy a project. That's what our marketplace is telling us, right? So if a place is like builder grade or it's beat to snot, or you need to walk in and sign up for a $150,000 renovation, like those are the ones that are sitting. Those are the ones that are doing price reductions. Those are the ones that are chasing the market.
Really?
If you price it even okay, and it's like turnkey move-in ready. We got lines down the street right now for those homes. So it's a very bifurcated market. It's like not everybody's winning, but the ones that are winning a lot, and the ones that are not, like the ones that are like a remodel, those are the ones that are kind of sitting right now. So the market is voting and saying, if I'm going to lose on price and I'm going to lose on payment, if you want to be over playful with that, then I got to be able to have something I could just move into.
Right. Now,
what do you
when you
see?
say payment, well, I'm saying the same thing. But for example, it depends on what you do and how I can convince the seller. I just did a video on paint color, what paint color to use when you sell your house. I'm getting like up 6,000 views on it, most I ever gotten a video. And I think people just want to know what I need to do. So for us, if we do something, I said, listen, you got to do something. Paint the garage and basement. Those are two things I say to do. And then put some color on the wall. Make it feel like, what'd you just say? Move in ready, so they can drop their stuff off and go watch the kids' soccer games. They don't want to do anything, these kids today. Nothing. So I sold this house, and nothing was ever done for 40 years. I put it from the market for $450. I get $510. It never should have paid for $510, because you know what? In our market, even though I only had 2 offers, but I had like 30 showings and tons of people at the open house, when you get that one buyer who really wants it, you can get them up against, I negotiate up against themselves. Oh yeah, I got to come up higher. The realtor's like, okay, how high? Because they wanted it. So that's what we have too. We have one in every house. That's just like 100,000 last week I got over asking, because he just wanted that neighborhood. Are you seeing that as well? You can find that one buyer when you're doing your negotiating?
Yeah. So again, I think just to kind of keep this in a technical perspective, so I'm not waxing too, overly poetically about this one or that one. If you're a seller, the biggest mistake you can make right now in my market is to overprice the home. Because again, if the price, I know, and we say of course, but in markets past, you could get the price wrong and you'd still get a couple offers, right? Like what's true right now is if price is not going to be a win, okay, and they're already having to sign up for a 6 or whatever, and they think it's a little too long in the price tooth, they'll let it sit, right? They don't want to show up and get overly excited about something if they feel like they're going to overpay for it, right? So again, like those are the two extremes, and this is kind of speaking to your point about the high-end market, right? Like there's no respite for the high-end market because of these same principles. But I guarantee you, even though you're saying that as an aggregate, if the right home came on the market in your marketplace right now and it was 1.5, but like it was priced right at 1.5 and it was already remodeled at 1.5, you're going to have multiple offers at 1.5, right? So there is that nuance of like every time we call it the snowflake philosophy, like every one of these is an N of 1. So you can bury your head in all the stats you want. You can look at all the aggregates, all the means, all the predictors, all the models, all the algorithms. But when that one home comes on the market, like you said, and it's got the one neighborhood and it's at the right price and it's got the right thing, it's hotcakes. And I think that part of real estate that I'm noticing is timeless.
Yeah. Now, are you seeing in your listings, when you get a listing, are you seeing fighting with your sellers to do stuff? Or do you see, like in our market, I'm seeing that all the houses that are coming on the market are the elderly people who should have moved years ago. And we have to go in there and we're like, we have 5 projects going on right now. I have hardly ever walk into a house and say, oh, let's just go on the market. It is so much more staging going on and better advice. Like I went into a house and the other agent said, do nothing. I got the listing. I said, we had to paint this room, do that. They heard something. People are looking for what value you're bringing to the table more so than ever. So I wanted to talk about that because value, as you can tell from Joe Stumpf has told us that years ago, that's why we're way ahead of the game and we have a business, is that you have to bring the value to the table, and even so, more so right now. I'm seeing that when I hear other agents or other clients say, oh, the agent said, I don't have to do anything, just put the house on the market. Are you seeing a lot more of that than you used to? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like to call that job security, right, Diane? Most agents, they love walking in, what they call it the 3 Ps, right? If they can convince the seller to price it low, and they can put a sign in the yard, and then they can pray that some other agent's going to go and sell it for them. Like, that's a traditional real estate business, right? And I love, you've been in rooms with me where you've stood up in front of big groups, like myself included, all taking notes furiously to figure out how you do what you do and how you've done it for so long at such a high level. Your game has always been in the preparation. right? Like
Yeah.
how well the eventual deal goes is directly proportional to how much prep and planning happened in advance. And I've seen you, on stage talking about how you're doing photos for folks when it's sunny and spring and color, knowing that
Yeah.
they're not even going to sell for the next year, or maybe they will sell in December. Like that amount of preparation and planning is
Yeah.
absolutely, and this is not like, it makes sense. And the rule that I always follow is, Diane, what would you do if you were selling your own home, right? And when you think
Yeah.
of it like from that Occam's razor, the rest of this is not a debate. It's obvious, right? If an actual agent in your market was selling their own home, they would do all those things. They would take the photos in spring and summer knowing that they're going to sell in November and December. They would end up changing out the basement, or, painting the walls, or maybe doing some little minor repairs on the thises or the that's, knowing that all of that is going to equate to, a line down the street ideally, multiple offers ideally, pin them all against each other, get a little bit more than market would bear out, and then have a very successful sale where you're dominating, controlling all the terms of the contract.
Right.
It's not rocket science, right? But the difference is that there's a dichotomy of are they salespeople trying to sell them something, or are they taking on clients and treating their money like it's their own, treating that home like it's their own? And when you come from that perspective, the rest seems to take care of itself.
Yeah, but you're seeing a lot of houses you go into or need a lot of work, or you're just walking in and then you just do nothing?
Thanks for bringing that
Same
back
thing.
around. I'd love to land that plane. So, in San Diego County, one of the things that we struggle with is old inventory. Okay, it's endemic in our marketplace because most of San Diego was built post World War I, post World War II. Now, I'll argue and say I'm a purist and I love that old architecture. I love those old building science. Like I love the rough sawn lumber and I love all the old details, and there's a whole nother conversation we could have about that. But at the end of the day, what that's left with though is old housing stock, right? And so you can see that there's a clear distinction, there's a clear line in the proverbial sand of how much homes sell for when they've been touched up, spruced up, loved up, versus the ones where it's like, throw a sign in the yard and let's see what we get. It's not even a fair fight, right? Exactly. So when folks do have that vision and they have that preparation and planning and they have a little bit of time to put into it and they have the willingness to do some of the lifting, maybe while they're still even living in there, which is no fun, the juice is always going to be worth the squeeze. So when I go in there and I'm talking to folks, one of the most important questions is, that, like, do you have the willingness, the time, and maybe a couple bucks laying around? Because if this were my home, these are the 5 things that I would do. And I get they don't have to always do any of them. It's their choice. But if you did, it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, and you and I know we go in there as consultants. We're not in there as salespeople because we can gain their trust just by being ourselves. Yeah, I don't think there's any other way to be. I mean, I'm pretty direct, as you know. I'm like, this is what we got to do. If you don't want to do it, and this, I just came out of the house the other day. I walked to my car. They ran out. Said, "Don't go anywhere. We want to hire you. You're the first person who told us the truth." I was like, I can't take this listing unless you're going to do these things. I can't sell for that price. Only if you do these things. And I said, I'll and I walked out, and they ran after me. So I think when you tell people the truth, and that's what we learned in Force, and that's when you build a by referral only business like we have. So that's kind of how that works out.
Imagine that like telling the truth, and when you take on a client and you're consulting, not selling, and you're giving them the same advice you give a member of their own family. Like imagine how that imagine that working out, right? It should be a no-brainer, but unfortunately we're riddled with a pretty low bar, with a lot of how traditional real estate's done.
Yes. Well, I have a really interesting question for you. So have you seen, for example, let's go backwards. Let's just think. What is your biggest technology? What is your like ace in the hole technology? What are you looking at right now with technology with selling houses? And like, what is the one thing that brings the most value to people when you're working with them? With home sellers, I'm looking at.
Yeah, so you mentioned technology in particular. And so I think that one of the most valuable things, and it's funny too, because when you say this, like we all know that there's almost no novelty in what folks find important when they're in the beginning stages of thinking about whether or not they want to move or sell their home or any of that stuff. And it's always going to be, at least for right now, right? And it has been this for a long time. Like, hey, what's my home worth, right? Yeah. Like, how unnovel is that, right? How much lack of creativity is that? But sometimes it's the dumb stuff, it's the boring stuff that still moves the needle. And so, we as an industry have democratized our information. We've shared through full transparency our MLSs with, all the free apps, the Zillows and the Redfins and the Realtor.coms and the Trulias or whatever the Homes.com, whatever the app de jour is. And so people can go out there and they can spelunk to their heart's desire and they can triangulate between all of them and get a pretty good idea, depending, of course, on what kind of home they have. Like if they have an anomalous home or they've got, a ranch with a bunch of acres, like algorithms are going to have a real hard time with that stuff, right? Yeah. But for the most part, you're going to be able to get a pretty good idea as to where you might be, like where the conversation might start at least, right? So one of the technologies that I have come across this year that I absolutely love is a platform called Fellow, Fello. I don't know if you've heard of it or not. But a dude named Ryan, I want to say he's out of like Ohio or something. He's a Midwest dude. So full circle on that. But he's created a really cool valuation tool, which I really think is the best one in the industry that rivals accuracy. And it allows us as brokers to also put our thumb on it a little bit. As to say, like I used to use HomeBot. I don't know if you're familiar with HomeBot.
Yeah, that's what I'm using right now. I'm using HomeBot, yeah.
HomeBot's been an old standby for a while, but if you want, truthfully, HomeBot's probably a little bit more of a lender tool if you want to be specific, because it's got all the different, thoughts and from, hey, you could do this with that or cash out refi, right? And that's cool. And we actually use HomeBot for that very purpose because we do mortgages here in house. But man, the Fellow has been a really cool tool specifically for future sellers to be able to better track all the different metrics and the moving parts from a real estate perspective, right? If deciding if maybe now is the right time to kind of time the market, or if this is a good number that's going to make my, dream come true, or the make me move price. And so that's been kind of my new sexy, if you will, that I'm finding a lot of my folks are digging is Fellow to help them justify whether or not it's time to pick up the phone, from the comfort of their own home or the conversation at their dinner table. Because, once that happens, it gets real. Right. So a lot of people don't like breaking that line. Right. They want to stay over in the digital world, do as much research as possible, because once they know they call somebody, it's like, all right, game on. Right. So that's my favorite tool I've been using for future sellers. But I'm curious, what about you?
Well, I was kind of thinking about more, which is good, future home sellers. I have my seminars. I do all kinds of stuff like that. And plus I'm doing my YouTube channel is taken off. But I'm transparent. I just want to say, here's what you have to do. If you don't want to do it, there's like a million agents you can call. You don't need to call me and to hear what you don't want to hear, because that's what I'll tell you. So kind of like matter of fact, I think is the best thing, is just going in there matter of fact. But as far as technology, I'm still seeing agents taking pictures with their cell phone. It like drives me absolutely wild, crazy. And like we've been doing drone and everything else, and it's like, have you still seeing like terrible photography and at all? Because a lot of these young millennials are getting into our business and they're still not doing what it takes. Maybe they have one listing, so they don't spend the money. I don't know. Are you getting? I figured California would be more techie. Is it more techie over there than in Philadelphia?
Man, I wish I could honor what you said earlier at the top, which is a lot of things happen over here and then they make their way, to the other markets. And in large part that's true. But Diane, unfortunately, there are still, in my humble opinion, far too many a percentage of folks where you can tell, right? And I just don't, meaning they shot the listing photos with their phone is what I'm trying to tell you, right? You can tell. And I'm shocked because I'm sitting here and I'm trying to do the math in my head, right? I'm trying to understand. So here you are, okay? You're a seller, and like any seller, a seller always wants to sell their home for the most amount of money, least amount of time and have the least amount of headaches, right? Like that's the constant. A lot of variables, but those are the three constants, right? And I'm just trying to imagine how that goes, where the agent's like, all right, cool, I'm going to come over and take, it's media day, and they come over and there's no preparation, right? You can tell, like, they didn't even give them coaching on, like, clean the house or make the bed,
You mean for
clean
taking
off.
pictures? You mean going?
Yes,
It's
like,
picture
like,
day.
yeah, like clean,
I'm
like
spending
clean off
$1,000, and
exactly.
Right.
Like, can you please remove, the blender from the countertop?
Right.
The most basic 101 stuff, or oftentimes it's just like, I can't
The
even believe I'm
drapes.
having to say this out loud in 2024, but like it'll be a shot of the bathroom and you can see the person in the mirror with their
Yeah.
phone flash. I'm like,
Right.
bro, like,
Or
okay.
also the
So,
shades are down, the blinds are down, there's toilet seats up. It's just amazing. And we go to our showings. So I think the biggest thing is you go to it's the picture taking. You have to have someone go with the photographer to fix it up before they come over. You can't just let them shoot it and leave.
right now, as a buyer,
Okay.
because of course we help buyers just as
Yeah.
much as we help, right? I love that because I'm salivating, right? Because it's not being marketed correctly. It's probably not going
Right.
to garner as much demand and interest. And the conversation I'm having myself is
True.
poor seller. Like poor seller,
Christ.
like do they not realize like how underrepresented they're
Yeah.
being right now just from the media day alone and the unintended consequence of how that capitulates all the way down and all the way through to them netting
They're like
less
negotiating and negotiating.
100%.
You know that an agent has zero negotiating skills if the pictures are terrible.
demand. Thank you. You're exactly right. Like show me your business and I'll tell you what you're thinking about. Like your business is a gallery and these photos and these listings are your art, and it's just like how in the world did the seller like hire this person or how did they not like once the photos come out and they see the guy shooting it with his phone in the mirror, like do they not go, hold on, like I'm looking at all these other photos online of all my neighbors and there's drone shots and there's twilight shots and the lights popping out of the windows and the sky's all beautifuled up and and the light and the rule of three and the fancy flash photography and what the hell is this, Ron? And it's like, like I don't understand that, but at the same
Right.
time I'm grateful because I'm like, dude, there's my competitive advantage. Like when I go to the next listing appointment, I'm up against that, feeling pretty good about my chances.
Yes, that's true. Because the other day I saw a picture of the inside, and then an outside, and then an inside, and then I was no rhyme or reason to the order of the pictures either, and then no remarks. Nice
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Come buy it. Anyway,
Or-
so we beat that one
all
up
caps.
pretty good. Yeah, all caps.
Yes.
So predictions. 2024, the election year is coming up. They say
Yep.
in November we always have the least amount of sales.
Yep.
In November after an October or November in an election year. I think it probably would be the same. I don't think it's going to be any different. And that after every election year, prices go up. So I read some predictions. I still feel that the market is on a rise as far as prices. I don't know if they're going to go up as high next year, but I still think we're going to have the same thing unless people think that somebody gives incentives to the empty nesters to move, because those people who are just sitting there and they're clogging it up. They're giving money to these first-time home buyers who can't buy a house because no one's going to take that government loan anyway because they have cash coming in. So it's like give money to the sellers who need to get out. Give them money to move or do something so it's like a clog. The drain is clogged and it's called empty nesters and nobody has a chance to move up or do anything. So that's what I see, and I predict that, unless we get some money or some kind of something or other to these sellers to move, some incentives to move, that it's going to continue to go. I don't think next year is going to be the same thing as this year. It's going to be continuing to go up. That's what I think for 2025. And if you look on some of these forecasters, they're all saying, 4 or 5%. I think it could be up more than that. What are you thinking?
Man, you said a lot, and
I know.
I feel like there's a lot to unpack. So, in no order of importance, I think one of the things you said, which I agree, I'm calling it the sarcophagus of the 3% mortgage rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
I think I don't want to misquote the number, but there's some ungodly number of boomers that are moving into retirement in like the next couple of years. Like it's like imminent. It's not like, in the next 10 years, it's like imminent. It's like this next couple of years. And so
Yeah.
we're supposed to see this dramatic shift of inventory from one generation to the next. And
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to happen because I'm sitting in the living rooms of folks that are having real hard conversations where they're saying to themselves, Diane, where the hell do I go?
Right.
Like
Can't
real
afford
talk.
it.
Like, okay, I don't want to move out of the area because my family's here, my kids are here, my lives are here, my job's
Mm.
here. I mean, my friends are here. And so it's like, that's always a respite, right? For San Diego, you've made so much money, you pull up stakes, you go like buy all cash in like a different area. Like that's happening and that'll continue to happen. But for the folks that don't want to leave the area, like where do they go? So there was a massive disbalance that happened with the sarcophagus of the 3% rate. And
Mm.
people are saying to themselves, I'd like to move, but I can't afford to. Even with the big chunk of check I'm going to get from all the equity I've been able to harvest, I can't afford to go anywhere else. Right. So that's part one kind of what you said. And that's a challenge. I don't know what the answer is. And we're going to hopefully, I don't know, you said government programs, cash grant. I'm not
Something.
smart enough to know
I don't know.
about any of that stuff, but like that would be cool.
Sounds good.
I think the moodiness of the rates, I call it the moodiness. It's very moody. Yeah. So our buddy Warren Buffett always talked about the market as Mr. Market. It's like an organism. It's a human being. It's moody, right? It's emotional, right? And so I think that the rates have become highly emotionalized. I'm just going to make up a word, right? Highly emotionalized, right? And so if the rate pops up a little bit, people just stop. They just make a decision to stop. And then when the rates come down, people get like fervent. They go, I got to get one yesterday. And there's this like imbalance with such a big asset purchase. You would think it would be more steadied, right? You would think it'd be more predictable, but it doesn't seem that way. It seems like it's this with whatever the economic news of the day is. And so the moodiness of the rates, if they do pop down into the fives in 2025, I think it's going to be an absolute shit show on the real estate, because even though inventory is slowly repleting itself, it's not at the rate of demand. So I think as the rates go down, the demand is going to spike, and I think the prices are going to take off. So it seems crazy to say that, because you're like, how could prices go up any higher? And I get that part of it, but like that's exactly what's going to happen. Like prices are going to shoot up when the rates go down, and then it's like you wish you would have done something in 24 when the rate was high. The whole thing, and that's like Monday morning quarterback stuff. But
I agree with you there. Because they say in September there might be a rate cut, and sometimes they do that in election year, depending, I don't know. But they also, I read some forecasts, and I've been reading up, they say 6.5, 6.4, some are saying 6.2 for next year, but no one's saying into fives for next year. But then when I look at forecasts from previous years, they're always wrong. So you never know. I mean, a couple of years ago, they said that prices of homes are going to go down, and it was a January, and they just scooted up 10% in like a month or two. So they don't really know what's going on, because I don't feel like they're boots on the ground. Like we're boots on the ground. We're on the ground. Like we know what's going on. And you and I know what's going on probably before anybody else does, because we're in the business. We're working the business. We work our by referral. We have customers. We're not waiting for the next lead to hit on your phone and say, oh, I got a new lead. I got a new lead. Let me call them. And they're the worst kind ever. So I mean, as far as compared to like referred customers. So what I like to say is, for me, for next year, I am in it 100% to our clients, to make things happen, and also to share that's why I'm doing my YouTube videos, to share with people like what's really happening, because there's so many YouTube videos out there doing negative news. The prices are coming down, and that's because they can get hits. But you get a lot of what do you call them? Doomsayers or something like that. I don't know what you call them, but do you hear about a lot of that in California? Because there's a lot of that in our area, like people just coming out saying negative stuff, realtors talking negative talk. It's just, I just got to go like this, Do you have a lot of that over there? A lot of that.
Well, I think what you said though is spot on. I'm always reminded about how the media and all these reports that you're talking about is at best they're working off of data that's already maybe 90 days old.
Yes.
Right. So they're talking about the rest of 24, but they're working off of data that's already aged. And then the part that's even exacerbated about that is that data that's now 90 days old, that's based on decisions that were made maybe 100 days, maybe
Yeah.
120. Like, so it's this revisionist constant, right? And that's just the nature of
Right.
the beast in real estate, because we don't have
Yeah.
stock prices that are changing by the day. Like, we're working off of all that. So it is what it is. But you and I are in the living rooms and the kitchen tables of folks that are having these discussions right now. So I'll share with you here. This is my own op-ed, because we're talking about prognostications. Is that there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think a lot of people are struggling a little bit more than what they're leading on or what they're willing to admit. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're seeing some
Yes,
of that too.
Yeah,
Is that
because
true for you? Like the dichotomy between
I see that because I offer, and I see when I feel it, and I get that's what's happening, and they're fighting a little bit about things. I say, listen, I have a line of credit just for you. You will, you just have to pay the interest on it. So I have this little $10,000 fund, what I give the clients, and they just pay like a 12% interest rate or whatever it is. But it's pennies. I just had a guy borrow $10,000.
yeah.
He wasn't going to do anything. I got him $100,000 by spending his $10,000, but he didn't want to do anything. I said, I'll just take the money, and it was $200 in interest for 60 days, and got it done. So I'm seeing a lot of that, but what I'm feeling is that you have to sit with them and we sit down with people and say, what's important to you about selling a home, and really understand when they're there. That's when I offer them the line of credit, and their eyes just light up like, oh my God, you would do that for us. And that's kind of what I've been doing when I feel I feel bad for people. So that's why I went and got this line about 3 years ago, because I don't want to put the sign on the lawn with it being like a mess, because I like to do something. So I said, how am I going to do that? What am I going to do? I said, well, that's because I have to do that. I have to have the money, and that's why I developed that. So I thought that was my value. That's kind of bring that little value to people. I would say 90% people actually take on that. They're really hurting today. They don't want to tell you though until you bring it. You have to really sit down with people a little longer these days to really understand what's important to them. I mean, I see that people just don't want to open up as much, and they're looking for so much. People are looking for integrity. They want the truth more than ever. I feel people want the truth.
Oof.
They're looking for us for truth, and when you bring that out on the table, they love that part.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think it's a testament. I'm not trying to butter your bread for you, but I think it's a testament to those are the problems, and you're always ahead of the game, Diane, because you're solving them before they even know that they had a problem. Like, they don't even know what they don't even know, and you're a few moves down the chessboard saying, I already thought of this for you, and here's the solution. And at the end of the day, you can't make them do that, lead the horse to water, drink type thing.
No.
And I get that part of it too, but keeping it simple, stupid. Sometimes people may be like, it sounds complicated, or I'm not comfortable asking for help, or I don't want to be indebted to anybody. But man, you and I also know the game, which is that $10,000 can turn into 50 real quick.
Oh yeah, and it definitely. I don't like the word no too much. So I'm the youngest of four, so I don't like the word no. So I always find ways of making it be a yes, and that's kind of why I developed, making that be a yes. People to really understand that there are other people out. Like there's people that they can help them, that they can trust, but there's very few of those. For example, Loretta, she's in her 80s, selling her house. She decided to put her house on the market, and she told a friend, like a neighbor, and the neighbors talked to this guy. This guy was a realtor. His old guy wants in with, here, sign this contract, making her sign for $620, and it had central air. He says, but you're only going to get $600 because central air is expensive. So I walked in there like, no, we're going to paint this wall, paint that wall. We're going to do this. Spent like $4,000, and I put it on the market for $650. I got $720.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the difference in helping people and telling them exactly what they need to do. And I sat with them, and I think of Charlotte. And I'm like, what would Charlotte do? Because she's so into that part, and it really helped with watching her and how she talks and how she does her business, realizing that that's what people need today. Is they need love, and they need to connect with. We need to connect with people more to get them to a place where they feel not only they make more money, but they just feel that less stress. That someone is that we're their guide by their side versus just someone we're paying a commission check to. And I find it too. I am not taking less. I stand by my commission. I don't know about you too. Like if someone wants me to lower my commission lower than I would normally do, to me it's like, no, this is what I'm going to do for you. If they don't understand the value, then I don't want to go to work for somebody who doesn't understand the value. And I'm sure you do run your business the same way.
Yeah, you mentioned Charlotte's mutual friend of ours. You mentioned her by first name. No one else will know who that is, but
I
she
know, but
exudes
she's
the
awesome.
servant leadership, which is exactly harkening back all the way to what you talked about earlier. Like
Yeah.
that's the separation. So when you're in the marketplace, it's always a good idea to triangulate the truth. Most folks get a referral from somebody, and if it's Diane, awesome. You got lucky, right? But maybe it's not Diane. Maybe it's a family member that's done 5 deals over the last 5 years. And I get that there's a high level of trust with that. Like I'm not stepping over that. Like that's how great business is always done, word of mouth, right? We just got done saying that for the last 42 minutes. But
Right.
like always make sure that you get a couple different opinions before you slap the table on the who's who. Because even though they might have the biggest heart, right, they may not have the experience that's connected with that, or they might not have the resources, like you said, with your line of credit, or they may not have the wisdom of
Yes.
knowing where to actually price it that might transcend through the comps. Or someone's just looking at the comp saying, hey, we should be at 650, and you're like, I know this market. This market's going to yield 700 to 720 if we do these things. Like, make sure you get at least a couple different perspectives. Sure, sit down with your aunt, who got the referral, who's done one deal in 5 years. She might be amazing. And that might be where you stop. But talk to two other people too, if nothing else, just to triangulate the truth.
Right, exactly. Well, we have 42 minutes. Feels like it was like 2 minutes. We had lots of conversation here, and I would love to actually come to San Diego and follow you around and just see what you do, because your group is amazing over there. And anything else you'd like to share about the world and about real estate there in San Diego?
Well, kind of you to say so, and luckily for you and I, since we've known each other for so long, I feel like I've been at your office maybe 50 to 75 times because of all of the mastermind rooms that we've locked ourselves into to share best practices and to try to
Yes.
triangulate our own truth. Because
Yes.
maybe what's working in San Diego today is going to be working over in Philly tomorrow, or maybe vice versa. And you've always done such an amazing job at being a thought leader, and you've always been so giving with
Thank
all
you.
of your strategies. And man, I've been an amazing benefactor of all of that, and then having you as a confidant to be able to now call you friend after all these years. So thank you for that, Diane.
Anytime. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. It was great to see you, and see you on the next video, guys.